Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgy kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description, as well as the link to our good friends at Dice Legion. Use the promo code SINISTER and get 10% off all of your purchases. We're doing a big goal for hitting 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We are right on track to meet that, but we can't do it without all of your help. So if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely subscribe if you're returning, and if you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button. And without further ado, we're going to jump into this week's video. We're talking about the 1D&D Playtest 6 Paladin. Paladin is going to go through a whole bunch of changes, which we're going to cover here first. First and foremost, at level 1, you do get weapon mastery. You can use 2 different kinds of weapons that you have proficiency with, and you can get those extra mastery properties for them. You can change them on a long rest, and you can use this pretty frequently to change whatever weapon you happen to get a magic item for. This is going to be one of those things that I think is going to be pretty common across the board for all the martial classes because of the mastery properties. You're going to be able to switch them constantly because sometimes you get a weapon and it's a great weapon, but it's not the weapon you were using previously, and you don't want to lose that, obviously. One of the cooler things you get at second level is Paladin Smite. You get all of the Smite spells pretty much, at least what I've seen. The only one that's missing is Wrathful Smite, but you get Divine Smite, Thunderous Smite, Shining Smite, Blinding Smite, Staggering, and Banishing Smite. And you always have them prepared, and they don't count towards the amount of spells you can prepare, and you can cast one of them without expending a spell slot, and then you get to wait after a long rest to be able to do so again, which is great. I think a lot of these spells are underrated and they don't get to see the light of day often, and I really encourage people to use them because I think they happen to be great. I think Wrathful Smite is amazing because to break that fear, you need to use an action as that creature that's affected by it. It's cool. I think it's a great level 1 spell, and if you have it at level 1, you should burn that spell constantly. But this is pretty great, and it does give you a good use of your bonus action once per day for free without any kind of real cost. At third level, you get Channel Divinity, but you do get 2 uses before you have to finish a short or a long rest, which is pretty cool considering how dynamic and how much more influential Channel Divinity is for your subclasses. They took a lot from the cleric and really kind of incorporated that, which I thought was a really smart move. They kept Faithful Steed, which I thought was great because now I think it'll be cool to see people running around with lances and really using that weapon to its awesome capabilities. But you know, it's a great ability. You get Fine Steed, you can cast it once per day without using a spell slot, and you always have it prepared, and it doesn't count towards your prepared spells. They did move Abjure Foes to 9th level. They had this before. Basically, you present your holy symbol, and you can pick a number of creatures equal to your charisma modifier, and if they fail the wisdom saving throw, they have the dazed and frightened condition, which is great. It's pretty debilitating, and it lasts for a minute or until it takes any damage. It's a good AoE crowd control, but again, it's the use of your Channel Divinity at 9th level. Depending on what subclass you want, you might have to pick which might be the best option for you, and if you don't really have one, it's always a great idea to crowd control some of your enemies so that way you can really stand out and prevent them from dealing additional damage or prevent them from taking actions. And at 11th level, you still have Radiant Strike. It's still 1d8 radiant damage on attacks that you wield. And now it's added on to Unarmed Strikes, which is good, though I don't understand why that circumstance would arise, but maybe you find yourself in that kind of a situation. The last base class ability is Restoring Touch. When you use your Lay on Hands ability, if you use 5 hit points to heal someone, you can remove a condition. Outside of it just being previously poisoned like it was before, you can remove blinded, charmed, dazed, deafened, frightened, paralyzed, or stunned, which is a big bonus, especially at 14th level when these things happen pretty regularly and you don't want to use a spell slot to break that, especially if it's a character that's a heavy hitter and you need them in the fight. It's a good use of this, and you have a lot, so it's really not even a big resource cost at this point. So let's talk about why the Oath of Devotion is going to see a lot more action coming up. And I think it's really because of that ability you get right off of picking it at 3rd level, Sacred Weapon. So it states, as a bonus weapon, you can expand one use of your channel divinity to imbue one melee weapon that you're holding with a positive energy. For 1 minute, you add your charisma modifier to attack rolls you make with that weapon, and each time you hit with it, you cause it to deal its normal damage type or radiant damage. The weapon also emits bright light in a 20-foot radius and dim light 20 feet beyond that, and you can end this effect as a bonus action. This effect also ends if you aren't holding or carrying the weapon, or if you are incapacitated. Now, this is really, really big. So, adding your charisma to your attack rolls helps you land those precious hits right off the bat. At level 3, if you miss, that is a big miss. You have done nothing that round, and you're kind of just hoping something happens, that maybe you get an opportunity strike on somebody. But that's a big issue. And at these lower levels, it can be difficult to land some of those hits against some of the more difficult targets. And it can be very frustrating. If you have a bonus of +2 to +3, however you got it, and your regular attack is 3 at this point, plus your proficiency bonus, so it's 5, you adding on +8 to hit at 3rd level for 1 minute. That is going to guarantee hits almost constantly. It's as close as you can get without missing anything. So that's going to make you very, very standardize your damage. It's going to be a nice cushion, and the higher level you go, that's a good position to be in, where you cannot have to necessarily worry as much of how to divide your ability scores. Is charisma not as good or strength better? You can add some of that charisma and feel comfortable that when it's time to do these actions, you can still carry forth if you don't have advantage, or if you didn't add enough ASIs into strength. At 15th level, you're going to get Smite of Protection. Your magical smites now radiate protective energy. Whenever you cast any of your paladin smite spells, you and your allies in your aura of protection have half cover until the start of your next turn. Now understand, aura of protection will go up in actual the range of it. So it goes up from a level a 10-foot radius to eventually a 30-foot radius, and that still compensates when you do actually use this ability. Now you do have one of those smite spells that you can cast for free once per long rest. This is really big because those smite spells are all bonus actions, and paladins don't have a lot of them. So here you go, 15th level, using one of those attacks, giving your players an additional AC, half covered I think is 2, on top of their normal AC, especially if they're in a 10-foot radius, meaning they're frontliners. That's a big bonus. That's a shield that they're carrying, and that helps out to mitigate damage because you'll be dodging more. They won't be able to hit you because the ACs will just go higher. That is just so great, on top of the fact that it does help your AC as well. So if you're using a two-handed weapon, now it feels like you're carrying a shield. That's just a great passive bonus to a spell that you're encouraged to use more anyway. At 20th level, you get an ability called Holy Nimbus. As a bonus action, you can imbue your aura of protection with holy power, granting the following benefits for a minute or until you end them as a bonus action. At level 18, your aura of protection is 30 feet. So, in that aura, you have advantage on any saving throw you are forced to make by a fiend or an undead. Keep in mind your charisma modifier is added onto any of those saves, so that helps out on top of it. And with advantage, you're probably going to miss basically or save from almost all of those spells because that's a pretty big bonus to you. Radiant damage. Whenever an enemy starts the turn in the aura, that creature takes radiant damage equal to your proficiency bonus plus your charisma modifier. Now that's 30 feet around you. Anytime an enemy starts its turn, it's going to take that full amount of damage. Which isn't a lot, but the longer a fight goes, and if you kick this off earliest, like first round, which I really encourage you to do so if you ever find yourself in this situation where you can use this, the longer it's out, the more damage it does. On top of that, you have this other rider on called Sunlight. The aura is filled with bright light that is sunlight. anything that has sunlight sensitivity is going to suffer. Vampires, undead that have any kind of sunlight sensitivity will suffer because of this. Now, once you've done this one action, you can't do it again until you finish a long rest, or if you expend a 5th level spell slot to revitalize your availability to use it. Moving on to the Oath of Glory Paladin, I'm starting to see the pattern of your 3rd level giving you something to do with your channel divinity once you use one of your Paladin Smite spells. This is a big change, and I think it's very intricate, and I think it's interesting, and I like the way they kind of put it together. Again, this has to do with your Paladin Smite spells, so things like blinding or banishing smite, that's what's being done. So immediately after you deal damage to a creature with any of your Paladin Smite spells, you can expend 1 use of your channel divinity and distribute temporary hit points to creatures of your choice within 30 feet of yourself, which can include you. The total number of temporary hit points equals 2d8 plus your Paladin level divided among the chosen creatures, however you like. It's a great self-heal, or really kind of like a self-damage mitigation. If you see someone else is in trouble, it's a great way to spread that out. And you don't need to use this constantly because, again, you only get 2 uses of your channel divinity. But in a circumstance where you need the resources, say to do smites or to do other things, but you don't have the necessary heal spells to help someone out, this can kind of mitigate that and bring that to a situation where you can make a huge difference to someone. Everything else about the Oath of Glory Paladin kind of basically stays the same outside of some of the durations of the benefits last longer, but I mean, to be honest, Peerless Athlete lasting for an hour as opposed to 10 minutes really doesn't change it for me. I can't imagine myself doing that many strength athletic checks or carrying something for that long. That would need such a big bonus. But everything else is kind of just almost the exact same way. So it's really unfortunate. I was kind of hoping for more, considering they have every other paladin class that they could have picked. The Oath of the Ancients Paladin really only goes through very few and small changes. First and foremost, they take out this Paladin Smite spell and getting a bonus action if you use your Channel Divinity with it. They just remove that completely for the subclass, which is a little heartbreaking. But instead, it just ups your Nature's Wrath from what it previously was, where it was 10 feet and 1 person. Now it's each creature within 15 feet of you, which is a little bit better, but not enough to kind of take away that really great option that we could have gotten, seeing how some of the other subclasses were given the opportunity to. And then the only other thing that changes is Aura of Warding, whereas previously it protected your allies who are in your Aura of Protection from, it gives them resistance to any damage dealt by a spell. This one only gives you and your allies resistance to necrotic, psychic, and radiant damage, which is a big downgrade from what it was before, which is kind of a shame because I really had a lot of appreciation for Oath of the Ancients. I thought it was a more supportive and like a leader kind of a paladin, because it kind of made sure everyone on the team was safe, and it kind of just takes away from that a little bit, at least in my opinion. The Oath of Vengeance Paladin. This is one of my favorite paladins. It was in the player's handbook. It was strong in the beginning. It's strong now. But with 1D&D, some of the things that they changed I really thought were kind of misplaced. First and foremost, you lose Hunter's Mark, which was a very cool thing to have. Not because of just the additional damage, but because you don't have a lot of bonus actions. You don't have a lot of concentration spells that last longer than a hit or two, like the Paladin Smite spells. And they did not give you an option where your Paladin Smite uses a Channel Divinity to create a different option. They just kind of gave you an improved Vow of Enmity, which is pretty good. The way it works is if the creature dies before the duration of a minute occurs, you can transfer a Vow of Enmity to another creature within 30 feet of yourself, and it doesn't take any reaction, and you can only do this transfer no more than once per turn, but it does give that transferability just like Hunter's Mark, which I think kind of was the reasoning behind it, but it doesn't give you the additional damage. It just keeps the advantage on, which really helps out a lot because you don't want to miss, and this kind of guarantees you hits, or at least betters your chances to stabilize your damage. But it doesn't seem like a good enough trade-off to lose Hunter's Mark, which I thought was just a real cool thing because it worked well with what vengeance was. You were tracking an enemy. You were seeking revenge for something that was done. And a great way to do that is with some of the rider effects with Hunter's Mark. And now that's kind of just gone. They did improve Relentless Avenger, which I thought was pretty great. So previously, if you were in a situation where you can hit an enemy with an opportunity attack, previously it let you move 15 feet and reposition yourself after doing so, and that movement didn't cause an opportunity strike. Now you can reduce that creature's speed to 0 and still get that movement of half your speed, which is 15 feet usually, without causing any kind of opportunity strike attack against you. This is very cool for tactical reasons. The implication in game is still very difficult as it was with the previous Relentless Avenger, but the fact that you can drop someone's speed to 0 and then move 15 feet and help cut off maybe someone else's advance or that thing's advance on the next turn, that's cool. The only issue I can see is it doesn't say how long the creature's speed is reduced to 0. It just says it is. I don't know if that means to the start of your next turn, which is very, very different from the start of the creature's next turn. Depending on how that could be, that can cause a lot of turmoil or confusion. So definitely iron that out. If you're going to playtest this, that needs to be cleaned up right away. Starting off looking at this, I really got excited for especially what they did with the Oath of Devotion. I hated that oath, mainly because of, a lot of the factors behind it. It's kind of like built towards being more healer, more good, more supportive, and they really buffed it to a way that you'd really still have strong offensive intuitions and inclinations. So I thought, wow, this is going to get great. Even with Oath of Glory, with that the channel divinity being tagged to those smites, I thought that was so cool. And then as it went on, it just got like haphazard, and I really don't understand why they made these changes, but thought it necessary to put these subclasses in, because it feels like they didn't work on it enough. It feels like it was just kind of dropped halfway through, and we're just missing out on what these things could have been. I don't think this was noteworthy enough to put these subclasses in. I'm sorry. I normally don't say anything really that bad, but this was a little heartbreaking to see things basically be the same, if not mediocre changes that really didn't advance what the subclasses were or some of the core things that made those subclasses great previously. And it's the Paladin. This is one of the historically well-designed classes in the game. So it's a little strange to see this kind of go mediocre. That being said, overall, Paladins are great. I love playing them, even though I tend to not like healing people. But there's a lot of cool things you can do with them. With all that said and done, we're going to bring this video to the close. A lot of the UA and Playtest 6 are really interesting with how they're designing some things. I thought they really had something going on with these Paladin smites and really incorporating them and really wanting you to drive that ability and use those spell slots, and maybe that's a good reason why you can only smite once per turn. But then they dropped it for the other halves of the classes. I don't know if they did it specifically for just survey information to see what they thought was better or what, but a lot of it seemed like it just didn't advance that much, and a lot of the things that we didn't like were kind of just still there. So all in all, pretty mediocre all around, though I still feel like Paladins are one of the best, if not the best, design classes in the game. That being said, we're bringing this video to a close. If you made it this far, thank you so much. It means a lot to the channel. It helps support the videos and help them get more pushes into the actual realm of people who might want to be seeing this content. So if you did make it this far, definitely hit that like button. If you liked what you saw here, hit that subscribe button. Again, we're doing a huge push to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're on track to meet that, but we can't do it without you. So definitely hit those if you haven't. Big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. We really appreciate what you do to help support the channel and help us grow. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description, as well as a link to our good friends at Dice Legion. Use the promo code Sinister and get 10% off all of your purchases. And thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.